We got LSU football talk. We talking New Orleans Saints. And we got a new co-host. I'm Ruddy Rutledge, and this here is some Bayou football. Welcome in to episode 3 of the Bayou Football Video Podcast. I'm Ruddy Rutledge, and after a longer than expected break, we are finally back. A lot to hit on this week's show. We've got LSU football's win over UCLA. We're talking about the New Orleans Saints and their taste of the agony of defeat for the first time this season. And we'll be looking ahead to both teams' matchups this weekend, which is the final weekend in the month of September, which means spooky season is upon us. But first, I'd like to take this time to address the elephant in the room. Now, overall, we were pleased with those first 2 episodes. Could have been better, but felt like we delivered some solid takes and some pretty good insight. But it would be disingenuous to pretend that those first 2 episodes went off without a hitch. That'd be very disingenuous. If you watch the episodes, you know what I mean. Now, my sister and I both feel like we know our stuff, and when we started this thing, we figured we had something to work with together as a team. But after the way both those first 2 episodes ended, it's safe to say that my sister and I can no longer work together. And that's fine. There's no hard feelings. It's not like we're not going to exchange Christmas gifts or birthday gifts, and she's still going to write for the website, our blog site, BayouFootball.com. But her time as a full-time co-host on this show has come to an end. Now, if you're wondering why such a change had to be made, take a look back at these 2 very short clips from our first 2 shows. Maybe she should go see the Wizard of Oz.
I'm out of here.
Follow the yellow brick road,
I'm
Rosie.
You know what you can do with your cheap headphones. Cheap, cheap, cheap.
To be honest, all you've brought to this table today is nothing but a bad attitude.
Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore because I quit.
Oh, really?
For good.
You won't be breaking my equipment anymore. And there you have it. Also, we're still waiting on an appearance from our older brother, Duck Rutledge, who also writes for the website. Well, occasionally writes for the website. He's written 2 articles. But Duck has always marched to the beat of his own drum, so I'm not going to be crossing my fingers for that anytime soon. Meanwhile, I have a new co-host, and that co-host will be introduced on this show today, so stick around. Today, I want to take a look back at LSU's 34-17 win over UCLA in a rather frustrating game, at least in the first half, that took place in the scorching hot box known as Tiger Stadium. Now, this game's been covered at length by countless other outlets since Saturday, but I'm still going to talk about it anyway. LSU was tied at the half with a UCLA team that was blown out the previous week by Indiana. That's not meant to disparage Indiana. They've got a great coaching staff. They actually really do. But they're still Indiana. And most of the Tigers' issues in that first half were of the defensive variety. But before we go any further, I'd like to issue a public service announcement to the balls and ballettes of Tiger Nation. Unrelated to the Heat, of course. Stop expecting this team to come out and dominate from start to finish. They're not going to do it. They couldn't dominate Nicholls like that. They couldn't dominate UCLA like that. I get up on Saturday morning last week on X, and I'm seeing predictions for the UCLA game from LSU fans. 49-10, 56-13. What were you people smoking? Waking and baking? Well, if you went to the game, you were just baking. No, this team starts slow. It takes them about a full quarter to start acting like they even want to be there. So I would suggest fans Stop expecting this domination from this team, and you'll be happier as a fan, like me. After another frustrating defensive showing in the first half, though, the Tigers kicked it up about 10 notches in the second half. They got inspired play from unblockable edge rusher Braden Swinson, who, as we speak, before our eyes, is breaking out as the Tigers' next big defensive star. In the second half, saw LSU shut UCLA down to the tune of 64 total offensive yards for the Bruins. But there's still issues with downfield coverage from the Tiger cornerbacks and safeties. Hey, want to go see a dead body? Check out Pro Football Focus's grades for the LSU secondary for this game. Ugly. But when you give up 200 yards passing to the 119th ranked pass offense in one half of football, that's going to happen. You get bad grades in school, among other things. Overall analysis of this team, though, I think this defense is slowly but steadily improving and may turn the corner by the time the Ole Miss game gets here. The defensive coaching staff, led by defensive coordinator Blake Baker, puts this defense in good position on a lot of snaps, only for the guys on the field to fail to execute and make the play when they need to. LSU's defensive line now is playing a lot better than what people thought they would coming into the season. They're showing steady improvement, and credit for that goes to defensive line coaches Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples, who are two of the best in the business. And the freshmen and newcomers in this group appear to be peeking around the corner and making impacts in these games. Looking at you, Dom McKinley, 5-star freshman defensive tackle. Looking at you, Ahmad Bro, freshman defensive tackle. Looking at you, JVR Suggs, transfer defensive tackle, who just put on his best performance in a Tiger uni. All three of them got out there and looked decent Saturday against UCLA. Of course, one defensive position we will not be seeing improvement from is at linebacker, and that is because Harold Perkins, as most of you know, unless you're living under a rock, tore his ACL and is out for the season. Now, contrary to popular opinion, this is not a huge loss for this team. It's a loss, yes. He's athletic, he's fast, he can make game-changing plays. But on this defense, in this situation that he's been in this year, I don't think this is that big of a loss. You can disagree with me all you want. Despite putting forth their best efforts, this defensive staff, despite working wonders with the defensive line, has simply not found a way to utilize Harold Perkins in a way that maximizes his talent. And I don't think that's their fault. After all, this is the second consecutive defensive staff that has tried and failed to properly utilize Perkins. And it doesn't help that he takes plays off. I said it. Disagree if you want. He does. One play, he looks like a linebacking ninja. And the next play, he looks like he's walking through mud without a care in the world. On the bright side of things for LSU, though, is Garrett Nussmeier. The Nuss bus has officially cranked up, left the station, and is rolling down the block. He's improving each game, and you're starting to see some national chatter about his play. This game, he finally pushed the ball down the field and made some deep throws that would no doubt impress some of the best pure passers in the game today. I mean, just tell me that deep throw to Kyle Parker didn't remind you of Aaron Rodgers. Tell me. Or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Take your pick. Or Jaden Daniels. Hey. But you couldn't have walked out there and handed that throw to the receiver any better. He's getting solid pass pro from Will Campbell and the offensive line, despite the fact they're facing heavy blitz pressure every game. And freshman Caden Durham is continuing to impress running the football. But Nuss obviously has the stuff. And with the lingering issues on this defense, it's looking like this team is going to go as far as the strong right arm of Garrett Nussmeier carries them. And speaking of that strong right arm, Nuss will lead the Tigers this Saturday night in Tiger Stadium as LSU takes on a tough South Alabama squad. Yes, I said a tough South Alabama squad, which despite 2 losses this season has turned some heads. They scored 87 points against Northwestern State. 87 points. That's hard to make on air. They have a quarterback, Gio Lopez, physical runner, already has a 100-yard game under his belt, and they were missing him for one of those 2 losses. They got the attention of Brian Kelly and his staff, I can guarantee you that. They've also got a physical running back, big physical running back who looks for contact. And they're coached up by a respected mind in Major Applewhite, respected offensive mind. So, won't be easy. Once again, don't expect some 63-0 type of score. That's not going to happen. But this is a night game in Tiger Stadium, and it will be cooler, so hopefully the fans will show up and stay, and hopefully the Tigers will take care of business in the first half for a change. And, of course, avoid injuries in a game like this. I'm picking LSU in this one over South Alabama, pulling away in the second half, 45-21. The New Orleans Saints evoke memories of their 2009 Super Bowl championship run with their red-hot start to this season, featuring a dazzling aerial attack, an impenetrable defense, and an unstoppable ground game. Well, all it took was a couple of injuries to derail this offense as the Saints dropped a nail-biter to the Philadelphia Eagles Sunday in the Superdome, 15-12. To start off, the Swiss Army knife, Taysom Hill, was ruled out for the game with an injury, and his absence was noticeable all game long. And on the third play of the game, center Eric McCoy went down with a groin injury. And the Saints' offensive line looked like a shell of the group that dominated the first 2 games of the season after that happened. McCoy's loss affected the group in a huge way. Udo was horrible. Cesar Ruiz was equally awful. And Trevor Penning, well, he reverted back to preseason form, including an impersonation of a petulant child whose candy was being taken away. No emotional control whatsoever. Any of y'all ever see Blazing Saddles? Does Trevor Penning not remind you of Mongo? Mongo only pawn in game of life. Trevor only pawn in game of football. Okay. With McCoy out, the Eagles' defensive line, led by Jalen Carter and all those other Georgia boys, exposed the Saints' offensive line. And Derek Carr fell back down to earth with an abysmal passing performance. As for the media darling of the week, offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, well, he's still good, y'all. He's still good. It's just, that didn't change. It's just that the more this team plays, the more tape other coaches are going to accumulate, which will allow them to make more adjustments, like you saw from the Eagles' defense on Sunday. They say NFL stands for not for long. You got a dominant running game? Not for long. Your quarterback's playing flawlessly? Not for long. Point being, adjustments are constantly being made at this level. And the Eagles studied the tape, and they made their adjustments. They played a 6-man front with 1 linebacker. And it gave the Saints offense fits. And other teams are going to watch that film, and they're going to do the same thing, including the Falcons this Sunday. It's a copycat league. Now, right now is the time where the Saints adjust to the adjustment. Granted, that's going to be hard without Eric McCoy. He's out 6 to 8 weeks with a groin injury, and he's clearly the MVP of this offensive line. Now, defensively, can't ask for a whole lot more than what they did Sunday, other than not leaving Dallas Goedert running wide open down the field several times. They held a good Eagles offense to 15 points, none in the first half. And the Saints offense just didn't do their job. Kamara ran the ball hard, but he missed Taysom Hill's lead blocking. Hopefully the Storm and Mormon is back soon. But the loss of McCoy is going to be extensive, like I said, 6 to 8 weeks, and that could spell doom for this team, given how that line looked when McCoy went down. They looked like many of us feared they would look when the season began. So, tough loss, but let's see how the Saints bounce back this week against the Dirty Birds, but it looks like Half the teams on the injured list, including Kamara, Ruiz, Demario Davis, Alontae Taylor. As of this recording, we don't know who will be healthy Sunday and who will be out, but yikes. I mean, that's a lot. And they're facing Kirk Cousins and a host of capable receivers. And on the other side of the ball, New Orleans is going to have to contend with former Saint David Onyemata, who's a handful up front. In the meantime, maybe another lineman will step up to account for the loss of McCoy. Maybe they'll sign somebody else other than the practice squad guy they just signed. I mean, Jason Kelce is available in case you don't watch TV commercials or live in a cave. Who doesn't want to see Mama Kelce in a half Saints, half Chiefs jersey in a couple of weeks on Monday Night Football, beating against the glass with Tay-Tay? I think I would rather lose every game by 40 points than to have to watch that. But we'll see what happens in Atlanta. Big divisional game against a hated rival. For this next segment, I'd like to give a few thoughts on the talk of the town this week, and that is this heat situation at LSU. The temperature reached nearly 100 degrees for the UCLA game Saturday at start time, and the stands were half empty by halftime. Now, given the oppressive heat, people were passing out and having to seek medical attention, and the fact that the Tigers were lackluster, at least on defense in the first half, I don't blame these fans for leaving. I don't blame them one bit. Who I do blame, however, are the geeks in the media, these nerds who sit up in their air conditioning press box and make posts of pictures on X and other social media, pictures of the empty stands, trying to shame the LSU fans for leaving early and not supporting their team. Give me a break, geeks. The nerve that some of you have to condemn LSU fans for doing this. I mean, you sit up in your air conditioner, you get on X, and then you try to shame LSU fans for leaving? For what? For engagement? There's several of you, and you know who you are. Glenn Guilbeau. Man, I've got some itchiness in my throat today. And on another point, I saw other teams' fans doing this, trying to shame LSU, posting pictures of the cleared-out stadium. I mean, this is to be expected from SEC rivals. It's all in good fun. But when Ole Miss fans try to do it, it's just laughable. I mean, this is a student body that is notorious for leaving games early or not showing up at all. Just ask their head coach. He has to beg them to show up every week. Now, it's easy to bash on a little runt program like Ole Miss, but without a little constructive criticism, I mean, what's the point? So, Rebels, here's something constructive. Instead of worrying so much about LSU, why don't y'all be braggarts for once? Give us the big reveal. Why don't you post pictures of that beautiful plush trophy room in Oxford? I mean, I'm sure it's just stacked floor to ceiling with trophies and plaques and awards and all types of accolades that further represent the dominance of Ole Miss's historically championship-winning football program. Oh, wait, never mind. Runts. Now, to the LSU fans. Many of you are complaining about the heat, or were complaining about the heat, and that's understandable. A lot of you posted online comments, mostly on Facebook and Tiger Droppings, demanding that athletic director Scott Woodward put his foot down and demand no more day games, demanded of the SEC and the NCAA. Well, that's a fire concept, and I'm all for it, but here's something some of y'all might want to know. Scott Woodward can't do a thing about this. President William F. Tate IV can't do a thing about this. The SEC, the mighty Southeastern Conference, cannot do a thing about this. You see, this problem is a Mickey Mouse problem. And that's because the SEC and all the schools in it sold their souls to the Disney conglomerate back in 2020 when they agreed to this new media rights deal that's just now kicking in this season. That's why the SEC's not on CBS anymore this year, with Aunt Gary Danielson crying into the TV, "Alabama's so special." The SEC, including the LSU and all the teams in it, agreed to take $300 million a year from Disney, giving the Mouse exclusive rights to broadcast SEC games on their networks, ABC and ESPN, as they see fit. Disney determines the start times, not the SEC, not the NCAA. That's part of the deal. If Disney's analytics say they'll get better overall ratings by putting LSU and UCLA at 2:30 and Oklahoma and Tennessee at night, that's what they're going to do. They're going to spread the games out with the sole interest of maximizing their ratings. That's what they care about. It's all they care about. Ratings and the ad dollars that come from them. So basically, money. They don't care if people are uncomfortable at the games. They don't care if people are passing out. They do not care. It's a bottom line, money-driven business, and the fans are just along for the ride. In their minds, not in my mind. I think the fans made the game what it is. But I don't work for Disney. Thank goodness. Now, apparently this ongoing story comes with twists and turns, because I just saw Brian Kelly on TV saying he would support a Louisiana state law banning college football day games in September, which would mirror an Arizona state law that's currently in place. Well, now we're cooking. Disney can't schedule a 2:30 game if it's against the law in the state. So that's what it's going to take, because the chances of Disney giving up their preferred start times, well, the chances of that happening is about 0.0. But as I stated earlier, we're heading into October now, so you're probably not going to hear anything about this for a while. So that's that. And with that, it's time for our final segment this week, where I will introduce our new permanent co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor now to introduce our new permanent co-host, Arthur the Bayou Party Dog. Talk to him, Arthur. Good boy. This 84-pound Australian Shepherd stud has his own Instagram account. And yes, to all you Aussie Shepherd lady dogs out there, Arthur is single and looking to doggy mingle. Arthur is opinionated. He's highly opinionated, and that's why he was chosen for the role. But unlike my last co-host, Arthur's not going to run his mouth incessantly. Are you, Arthur? He's not going to repeatedly interrupt. Are you, Arthur? He's not going to wad up paper and hit me in the face with it. He's not going to destroy my equipment. He's not going to up and quit in the middle of the show. He is a real good boy, and this is some Bayou football. Please like and subscribe, and please check us out again next week when Arthur assumes his new role. Who dat, and go Tigers. Good boy.